Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Progress with number 57 in the series Viewers Games. This one is from Mark. He says, in this game I was black. It was a 10-day correspondence game on chess.com, which means that for every move both players had 10 days to come up with their move. I did not use any computer analysis, but I did spend a lot of time thinking about most of my moves until the very end, including analyzing several move possibilities over the board between moves. I would certainly appreciate any thoughts you may have about the game. Thanks so much for taking a look at it. Well, that's a great way to get better at chess, by playing a game with lots of time to think and not using the engine. And then afterwards, checking with the engine or checking with Chess to Progress, who is also checking the games with an engine, about what could have been better, what moves could have been improved on. Let's look at the game. Mark was black, so let's look at it from the black side. His opponent played e4 and Mark played e5, a classical reply, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, the 4 knights game is on the board, bishop c4, and now the most popular move is bishop c5, but knight takes e4 is the second most popular move. It looks like a piece sacrifice, but it is not. Black has taken a pawn, but of course white can take that piece. But if he does that, white has won a piece, but there is d5. Standard combination. Forking 2 pieces and black will win his piece back. Bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, and the game is even, at least from a material point of view, and also overall this position is about even. But after knight takes e4, white did not take that knight. He played bishop takes f7 check. That's another option, not as good as the alternative. It looks good to take black's castling rights away, but in this case it doesn't give white an advantage, as we'll see. Mark took the bishop, and only then did white take the piece, and now d5 is not a fork, of course. So materials equal. Knight g5 check. King step back in the corner, d3, h6, kicking the knight, knight went back to h3, bishop g4, and knight hg1, rerouting the knight who had no future on h3. This knight cannot move anywhere else. These squares are taken by black. He cannot go back to f2, so there's some logic in knight hg1, but it's quite slow putting the knight back on its initial square. Actually, it's quite funny, it's not its initial square, it's the initial square of his brother, the other knight. This knight went from b1 to c3 to e4, g5, h3 and back to g1. So that's a lot of moves for the same piece in the opening, and that's why we see white getting a development, getting behind in development. e4 was played by black. It does not win a piece. It looks for a moment it wins a piece, because this knight is pinned and now attacked by a pawn. But d takes e4, d takes e4, then white can take on d8 as he did to solve the pin of the knight on f3. Rook takes and knight back to d2. Here knight d4 is a very strong move, threatening to take on c2 with a fork. And here we really see the big problem white has with his development. Black's only problem is his rook on h8. If he can solve that problem, all his pieces are in play, while white still has to develop his king side and also his queen side. Knight d4 was not played by Mark. He played bishop b4, bringing another pin into the position. c3, dealing with that problem. Bishop back to c5. And here a move like knight e2, doing something about development, needs to be played, but white played f3. Not a good move. Mark took, knight takes, and king h7. Good move, Mark, activating his last piece. His only problem piece on h8 can now be brought in the game. b4. Mark gives a check with that piece that was undeveloped. King d1, knight e5, a nice tactic, just leaves this piece hanging on c5. You cannot take it because of knight takes f3, and you cannot take with the knight because it's pinned. Lots of pins in this game. And after g takes f3, there is bishop takes f3 check with a bishop fork. The rook in the corner will be lost. King c2, bishop takes h1, and this is very good for black. So nice tactic after knight e5. King c2 was played by white. Bishop f5 check. King b3. And now Mark saves his bishop. He plays bishop e3. This helps white somewhat solve his development problems, which he still has. Bishop d6 would have been a better option. After bishop e3, white took on e5. Bishop takes d2. And knight back. Good move from white. Attacking the bishop on d2 with 2 pieces, and it's only defended by the rook. So Mark took on c1. Rook a takes c1, and now white has also been able to develop his pieces and coordinate his pieces. This position is about equal. Another check for Mark. King b2, bishop d5. Here rook h e1 is a very good move. Position is about equal then, but white played h4. Rook e2 check. Rook interposes. And here white has a nice tactic, which Mark did not find. Rook takes g2 is a very unusual tactic, but it works. Because if you take that rook, there is bishop takes f3 with a skewer. And black will get his sacrificed material back. Rook h2, bishop takes, rook takes, and this is somewhat better for black. He has an extra pawn. Mark did not see that. He took on c2 with check. King takes, and he took the a2 pawn. But that's an extra pawn that will not last long, because white can win the pawn back on a7, as we'll see. With rook a1 hitting the bishop. Bishop has to play, and rook takes a7, wins back the pawn. Bishop e4 check. King b3. Black activates his king. In the endgame, the king has to take part. It's a very strong piece in the endgame. Rook a5. Rook d5 from Mark. And here, a crucial moment in the game. After a move like rook a2, there is not so much going on. Black is slightly more active, has slightly the better position, but white should be able to hold this with good play. Swapping the rooks is a grave mistake. As we'll see, bishop takes d5, king c2, and then take on f3. G takes, king h5, and black wins the pawn on h4 and has an easily winning king and pawn endgame. This h-pawn will go through, and white doesn't have any counterplay on the queen side. So after rook d5 you cannot take the rook, but white played king c4, and that's not a good move either. Mark took on a5, b takes a5, and now you can take on f3, g takes f3, and then play king h5, which is good for black. The way Mark played is good as well. He played king h5 first, king d4, and now Mark took on f3 and is going to win a pawn. G takes, king takes h4, and this is a simply winning king and pawn endgame. Let's see how it went. c4, king g3, c5. Those pawns are not quick enough. The h-pawn is very quick. c6, played by Mark. He could also have started running with his h-pawn straight away, but c6 does not ruin anything. King e5, the king has to come over to make a passed pawn on the queen side. And there goes the h-pawn. King d6, h4, king c7, h3. King takes pawn, but white is too slow. h2, a6, h1 queen, and a7. It looks like white might be able to promote, but black can stop him very easily. Well, very easily. You have to find queen b1 check. Queen b1 check, not a difficult move to find, but it's the only winning move. White took the pawn. And now there's a nice move. Queen f5 is a nice move. Because if you promote, there is queen takes f3. Picking up that pawn and picking up the new queen, more importantly, through a skewer. After king takes e6, Mark played queen a2. He's using the step ladder method, which is fine because it works. King b7, protecting the pawn. Queen b3 check. King c7. Queen a4. King b6. Queen b4 check. The queen is slowly but surely closing in on the king. King c6. Queen a5. And the whole idea of this is to take squares away from the king when the queen is closer. Less squares will be available to the white king, and in the end he'll have to give up the pawns. Let's see how that works. King b7, queen b5 check, king c8, there goes the c pawn with check, king b8, and there goes the a pawn, because black still has the pawn on g7. King takes, king f3, and the g-pawn will race through, and there's nothing white can do about it. So here white resigned, and Mark won a very nice game. Well played, Mark. It's great that you spent a lot of time analyzing this position and not use the engine. Of course, it's very tempting to use an engine, and it's great that you had the discipline to not do it. You found some very, very nice ideas, some unusual moves. It was nice how you, for example, kept that bishop, which was attacked by a pawn. You just left it on freeze because you found another move. Very creative play, and very nice of you to share this game with the Chess to Progress community. Hope you all enjoyed it. Well done, Mark. Hope you enjoyed Mark's game. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the Chess to Progress channel. Please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media. You also may want to check out my Chess to Impress channel. Lots of material there as well. I just did daily videos on the 2018 Candidates Tournament. This is Rick for Chess to Progress. Thank you for watching.